Okay. Um, what messages have you received about sex throughout your life from your family and friends?
Overall, I feel like the messages I received about sex throughout my life have to do with it being the right person. The right person is someone that it would be better if it was with someone that cared about you, someone that you cared about, that you had support from, that was very understanding, respectful. It's something not to just do like rash. Like it's something to think about and also to consider like any consequences or anything that can come from that sexual relationship. So to be safe
Okay.
is something that was a strong value that I feel like I got from my family, especially.
Okay.
So with the right person at the right time, be safe are the main things I feel like my parents and family stressed.
Okay.
From friends is separate.
Mm-hmm.
Friends would more so say like it should be for one enjoyable. It does not have to necessarily always be with the right person. If it happens, it happens. But as long as it's something safe and it's fun.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
are the main messages I feel like I get from my friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you view these messages as helpful or harmful to you in creating a positive sense of your sexuality?
I feel like both.
Okay.
Positive in the sense that I do think it is important for any, not just woman or woman of color, or like, I just feel like period. I think it is important to think about how you view your safety in terms of sex, whether that's birth control, condoms, those things I feel like are at least important to consider. Um, so I would agree with that. And I do think for me, the most positive sexual experiences I have had have been with someone that I loved and someone I felt like loved me and cared about.
Okay.
The times where it kind of just happened, it was like maybe something I experienced in college. It didn't always, it didn't always make me feel good in the long run.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I had some negative experiences that came along with sex, and that was because of the pressures to, for one, have it and just not necessarily consider it being with someone I cared about.
Okay. Okay. How did you first learn about sex, and from whom did this information come?
I first learned about sex from my parents. They I feel like they were not like a lot of parents that are from the community that I came from. There was no like birds and bees and storks and shit like that stuff.
You're fine. You're fine. You can be real with it. That's
okay.
good.
That's not how they explained it to me. Like they were still conscious of my age, but still very much like these are your body parts. Boys have different body parts. This is how babies are made. If I had certain questions about something that was happening in a movie, like they would stop the movie and tell me what's going on. Even with songs, like I remember being a little kid and listening to certain songs or rapping and saying the lyrics, and I had no clue what I was saying until they actually explained them to me.
Okay.
So I would say my parents.
Good.
Yeah.
How was sex discussed and/or sexuality expressed within your family?
Sex was discussed as blunt and direct, and I feel like from my family, it was more so that way because they didn't want me asking questions or going to outside sources that may not, for one, have the best positive influence.
Okay.
So they expressed a lot of those things so that I knew and was aware first. Because they felt like in my parents' mind it was better to come to them than to like consider a friend or whatever who had not been experienced yet.
Okay.
And in terms of sexuality, it was very much so traditional, man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my family, not even just my parents, but even extended family, are contradictory. Like sometimes they say that when it comes to sexuality, like for those that may be lesbian or gay or whatever, oh, like it's fine, that's their thing, don't worry about that. But if that was to be me, then it would be a different story. So it was very much just man and woman, that's what they do when they love one another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the focus on sex as it relates to reproduction, or did you also learn about sex as it relates to pleasure?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Like I mentioned before, like they let me know what parts was what, and like I said, there was no storks and stuff like that. It was, this is how babies are made. But we did talk about pleasure, and we talked about it in the sense, though they framed it in the sense that it's more pleasurable when it's with that special someone.
Okay.
Whereas, like, I would say even cousins and friends of mine, like I said before, said pleasure doesn't have to be with someone that you love. It can be from the act itself.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. How are the sexual expectation and roles of men and women defined by your family? Which you kind of already answered this. Very traditional.
Very traditional. And I would say even more so, I've noticed, I don't necessarily just want to bring it back to women of color. I think this is, if I'm speaking in general terms for women, but I know I got those messages from my family, whether they would like to admit it or not, to be like sexually appealing to men.
Okay.
Especially black men. I would say I can remember conversations with aunts of mine, other female cousins of mine, female friends of mine, that as a black woman, I need to make sure I look a certain way, and I need to do certain things that are appealing to black men, otherwise they will stray.
Okay.
Yeah, so I definitely remember. Is that kind of similar to what your question is asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Your role as it pertains to women and men, yeah, defined by your family. Sure.
Yep. So like dressing a certain way, performing oral sex, and actually being open to it. And yeah, I feel like those were definitely messages that were put out there. With my mother and father, it was not that way. It was, you weren't just some sexual object for a man's pleasure. But I still got those messages anyway, even if it wasn't from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are cultural expectations about sex and sexuality that you feel impact you personally?
Okay. Well, that was actually kind of some of them. So what I answered with
Sure.
the last question, but some cultural expectations. That's what you said, right?
What are cultural expectations about sex and sexuality that you feel impact you personally?
So, for one, I would say, just, let's see, how do I say this without like shocking you with what I'm about to say.
Don't worry about me.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
Honestly, you should be having sex with your partner, who in my family has always been expressed as a man.
Okay.
As much as possible.
Okay.
Like, even if there are times you may not feel like it, try to feel like it. Otherwise, he's going to stray. If he's not having sex with you, he's gonna be having sex with someone else. So I would say those are some messages that have impacted me in relationships of mine, as well as being open to certain things that maybe I wasn't open for at first, such as have oral sex, we say giving head. Those are certain things that I feel like did impact me, like as a teenager going into adulthood. That was definitely stress, that you should want to do those things, otherwise you risk losing your
Really?
man.
Really?
Yes, because there are other women that are doing that and could be doing it better. So that's something that you need to get into. So,
Okay.
yeah.
How are the sexual expectations and roles of men and women defined by your culture? Probably, I'm going to assume similar to what you're saying then.
Yes, very similar. And also, I would say that from like a black male's perspective, because I've only dated within my race.
Okay.
I feel like just from the experiences I've had, and also conversations with black friends of mine that happens to be male, that they are to perform well in the bedroom. Like that is expected of them. They aren't supposed to have these just big dicks and know what to do with them.
Okay.
And I feel like that can be a lot of pressure. I feel like for them to live up to that expectation. Sure. And that seems to be what's expected of them sexually.
Is it a lot of pressure on you for the stuff that's expected of you that you've talked about? Keeping your man and, making sure that you're...
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of pressure?
It was for me in the past. I am currently in a relationship now,
mm-hmm.
and it is not the same anymore. Like, I feel like we have a very healthy relationship sexually, and I will tell him if I ain't in the mood, just because I will. So, and he may like grumble about it like any man would,
right?
But he'll respect it, and that's because I won't settle for anything less.
Good for you. Good for you.
So yeah, I feel like in terms of culture, especially with like black culture, it's you will be, as a woman, you will make sure you look good, make sure you're, in tip-top shape, going to do hopefully what he asks and what he wants. And as a black man, you are to perform and perform well, since they allegedly have the biggest penises. So yeah, I feel like those are the main things. And also I feel like just having a lot of women that you've experienced is something I feel like that's not even just for black men. That seems to be just a general statement for all men.
Yeah.
But I've noticed more specifically, I'm just talking from my experience as a black woman.
Sure.
I've too many male friends, and just relationships and boyfriends where it seems like being faithful sometimes was hard, because in their mind it's I need to have a certain level of experience with as many women as possible, whereas as a woman that's not the case.
Okay. How do your family or work obligations impact your sex life? I guess you could throw school in there too.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say family impacts it as much. More so work and school, because I'm tired sometimes. And I've been in a relationship for 7 years now, and
wow.
we been together for a while, and the sex that we had years ago in college was all the time, and now it's just not, because I am a 28-year-old woman with responsibilities, and he's older as well. So does it impact it? Yes, it's not as much, but even though it may not be as much as it was, the intimacy is actually much deeper now.
Oh, good.
So I personally actually feel like in that sense it's gotten better. So
good. Do you have religious or spiritual affiliations that is important to you? And how does that affect your beliefs about sex and sexuality?
I do. I'm a Christian.
Okay.
My father is Baptist. My mother is Catholic. But growing up, religion actually was kind of a hard topic in our family, just because, for one, even though they love one another, they're still different denominations,
mm-hmm.
and they did struggle with knowing how they wanted to bring me into that.
Mm-hmm.
We did not go to church all the time, but even though we did not, I'm still very much, I believe in God. I'm still Christian, very spiritual. There were certain times where I felt like, oh, that played into me waiting or first thinking that I needed to be a virgin until I was married, but that did not happen. It just was not realistic for me.
Sure.
But it is, so it did play a role in that sense.
Okay.
But for me, I just feel like, though that's my religion and though that's part of like my spirituality, I'm still going to enjoy sex because I still think it's a beautiful thing.
Sure.
That happens with, when you care with someone, even if it's someone that you're not in a relationship with. To me, sex can still be a beautiful thing.
Okay. Do you feel you have access to adequate resources, birth control, medical care, that promote your sexual health? If not, what do you view as barriers to accessing the sexual health resources you would like to utilize?
I feel very appreciative and blessed in the fact that, for one, I have insurance, because that's not something that everyone has, which I personally feel like everyone should be able to, but there are barriers that can prevent that for a lot of people.
Sure.
But for me, yes, I have the resources that I need. For my boyfriend and I, we use condoms, and we also, like, I have an app on my phone where I track my cycle, track my not fertility, what is it, ovulation.
Okay.
And that works for me. The crazy thing about that, though, is that when it comes to friends of ours, we're very open about certain things with sex. I don't think you need to tell everybody everything.
Sure.
But I mentioned numerous times to friends of ours that, like, yeah, we just use condoms, and they look at me as if I said I had 3 breasts. Because for many people, they're like, no, that's, I've heard friends of mine say, like, that's childish, it doesn't feel as good. You should be on birth control, as whether that's like the pill or patch or NuvaRing. Like, there's different
Sure.
forms.
Sure.
But for some reason, well, I know the reason. The reason as to why I feel like I often get put down for using condoms is because friends of mine have said, well, it doesn't feel as good. It would feel better to him if he wasn't using one. But for me, that's what we started using 7 years ago. I had been using condoms before that. That's just how I view safety.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what it is.
Okay.
So
That works.
Yeah.
What messages have you received from the media about your body image and sexuality, and how do you feel these messages impact your ability to develop a positive sexuality?
Well, can you say that one more time?
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. What messages have you received from the media about your body image and sexuality, and how do you feel these messages impact your ability to develop a positive sexuality?
Okay. I'll say, in terms of body image, it took a long time for me to get comfortable with mine. I feel very curvaceous, and was even more so before I lost weight. So I lost around 25 pounds like a year and a half ago, which my family even still feels like I'm too skinny. I sometimes they even say, like, girl, you shrinking, you look sick, which I'm like, I'm actually the appropriate weight for my height, but whatever. So I feel like being a curvy woman, there have been times where I've been judged differently than women that are not as curvaceous as me. Even when it comes to like work, I can recall getting certain stares and just certain things about what I wore, even though there would be no cleavage or anything showing, just me wearing a turtleneck, which is covering everything. Still looks different on me than someone that is like a size 0 or a size 2. So many times I did worry that I needed to lose weight to be just more appropriate, when in reality, like, this is how I'm built.
Sure.
So in terms of my body image now, I feel like it's very healthy. I'm very confident with it, and I make sure to stay that way. And that's just what it is. I've come to a point that the media, especially social media, as I know that that's something that a lot of women use, especially when you're comparing yourselves, and it can get to be unhealthy at times.
Mm-hmm.
But for me now, as a 28-year-old, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. You think age has something to do with that, though?
Yes.
The maturity of where you're at?
Absolutely. Because it was not always that way.
Right.
It was very much, I was comparing myself. I need to be thinner, because if I'm thinner, then I'll look more appropriate. I have too much boobs, too much hips, too much butt. It draws too much attention. It doesn't need to. I need to hide it, and I can't hide it. So, but yeah, I would say those are messages that I did get. And now I'm just kind of like, if you look, you look. It's there. It ain't going nowhere. And that's what it is.
I love that attitude.
Thanks.
Okay, I appreciate that. That is all I got here.
Okay.